So, I mean, it's really hard to say, to list off a bunch of inspirations and compositional techniques for Odysseus, because really I was responding to the work of Luca Lesson as the poet and rapper, and to Jordan Thomas Mitchell, the producer. For the first reason being that, well, obviously it's a narrative piece. It's a rewriting of a story, so everything you're going to do musically is around that. So it's kind of like being a film music composer. You've got to write music that matches a scene and that sets the scene, and so yes, there are compositional techniques to do that, but the driving force isn't like, I want to write this incredibly avant-garde piece of new music where the music is center. It's not. The music is there to support the text. We can talk about the music text issue more later if you like, because of course music can do things that text can't, but still principally the music supports the text. Jordan, so yeah, that's the first thing. Second thing is that Luca and Jordan were ahead of me the whole way through this project. So Luca started writing, we all pretty much started writing around the same time, about 6.5, 7 months before we staged it. The planning of what we were going to do had been done the year before, but the writing all happened late and in a huge rush. And yeah, so Luca, there was always text for me to set. I don't think I ever sat down to just write music to inspire the writing of Luca. I did write things like motifs and things to set more general ideas, such as the set sail motif that comes throughout the whole piece. So there are some things where the composition is doing stuff that isn't in the text, or to support the text more broadly rather than literally set words, but Luca's words always came first. Similarly, because Jordan had completed instrumentals for most of the rap songs by the time I think he arrived in Australia in April 2016, that meant that there was an awful lot of musical material that I could draw on. Now, I did in some cases write new musical material to be played by the acoustic instrumentalists to go into the raps, but in a lot of situations I also took musical ideas from the raps that you probably can't hear unless, like me, you have all of the tracks in the rap, so I can like break down the musical layers, and I would transcribe them, and I would say, what would happen if I stretched out that bass line and put it 2 octaves higher, or turned it upside down, or did stuff with it. And so, for instance, in the Cyclops rap, Jordan wrote that 2 months before I wrote the Cyclops spoken word. So there are all sorts of things that happened where I took elements of the rap and put them into the orchestral work, which you may or may not be able to actually hear. And in some cases, Jordan then heard the orchestral stuff and said, "Oh, I think I could put that back in the rap." So we then end up with this sort of going, this way of sort of sharing and making material consistent. So coming back to your question of what compositional techniques did I use and how did I approach it, I think I think the compositional techniques were the kind of things that you use when you're doing things like film composition. So lots of motivic writing to string things together. So we have a motif for set sail, as I said. Every time Odysseus on the Odyssey goes from one place to another, we hear this sort of bubbling motif in the strings. We have an Athena motif for every time the god Athena helps him. We have a sea motif, Thalasar. Yeah, so lots of different motifs. And then the rest is really about text setting. So Luca, as well as writing, actually recorded himself saying the poem. I mean, this would make a terrifically interesting composition activity for an upcoming composer. Would be to either do a piece of writing yourself or take someone else's writing and record it, and then try and write a piece of music that fits with it. So most computer applications nowadays for composing, whether they're sequencing programs like GarageBand or Pro Tools or Cubase or something, or whether they're notation programs like Sibelius or Finale or Musical, will allow you to put an audio track in, so you can actually, and put markers in and things like that, so you can actually see where things are going to happen in the text. And that is literally how I composed. I lined that up. I still pencil notate all of my initial notes, but lots of scoring, looking at where particular things happen in the text and making sure that the music fits that thing that's happening. We can go more into the detail of how you do that, but that's the broad compositional approach. And I think that while there's a huge jump from I just set the text to actually writing music, that is definitely not a baby step. That's a lot of work and a lot of there's a lot of knowledge needed to do that. If I were to say to you, think of some music for an exciting battle scene, whether it's an opera or a film or a piece like this. Now just describe what the music will sound like to me, or I want you to write that music, but before you write it, just tell me what kind of music you're thinking you'll write. Yeah, let's put the question like that. You're probably not going to come back to me and say, well, I'm going to write something really slow and really quiet and really low in pitch, and it's only going to use low strings, and it's because those are sounds that we might associate with sadness and things like that. You're probably going to say that it's going to be fast, not slow. If it's exciting, you're probably going to say that it's going to be loud or have loud bits. You can probably even think of the kind of instruments that you're going to use, whether you're writing electronic music or whether you're writing acoustic music. So even, I think that first step of just, what's the mood, what's happening, what's the action, and then what's the sound that fits that, is actually quite easy. Unless the text is really bad, you have a clear idea. So I think those are really, there's probably more in there, but those are the two approaches really. Motivically make things work across the whole piece, that's the kind of the broad thing, and then individually in each piece really work closely with the text and what mood, how, think of some words that describe that scene or that section of the scene, and then think about how you can create that mood in music.